It's a harsh spot I'm putting you guys in, but next season, 25-26, who wins the Scudetto? One word, Marco Messina. There is how it looks after 38 games of calcio. Napoli, the champions, winning the league by a point over Inter, confirming that with the win on Friday against Cagliari, Inter, Atalanta, Juventus, rounding out the teams that will be playing Champions League football next season. Roma into the Europa League, as will Bologna by virtue of winning Coppa Italia. Fiorentina will be back in the Conference League with Lazio missing out on European football on this final day by losing at home to Lecce, who are safe from relegation. It's Empoli who lose today at home to Verona, Venezia who lose at home to Juventus, and Monza have long since been relegated. That are the three teams that go down. Empoli have been in Serie A for 4 seasons. They will now be in Serie B come next season. Let's welcome you back into our studio. Matteo Bonetti comes in for Tony Miola. And guys, we want to talk about some of the big stories that happened over the course of the longer term of the season. I guess we should start with Atalanta. We talked about some of their disappointments with the fact that they struggled, particularly at home in the second half of the season when they were in a title race, but they also have the Golden Boot winner in Matteo Retegui, who's one of the players that we'll remember this season for.
Yeah, for sure. And Retegui came in only because Scamacca was injured, right? So they needed desperately a striker. So it was supposed to be a short-term fix. But now it raises the question of what happens to Scamacca when he's fully healthy. He's had multiple injury problems this season. He's hardly played. But Retegui is the capocannoniere, and by quite some margin, 6 goals above Moise Kean, who was number 2. So this is typical Atalanta, Chris. We can name so many different players that have come in that never really were that consistent in goal, and then they get the Gasperini treatment, and it's like you're revitalized as a footballer. Dufan Zapata, Luis Muriel, Papu Gomez, so many others at the top of my head.
What do you call it, the Ivy League for strikers?
It is absolutely that. And Retegui just passed cum laude, just like Mike Grella at Duke.
I don't know if that's true.
Go ahead.
You know what impresses me, though, about that? It's not just how well he's done. It's the quickness that Atalanta worked as a club to say, okay, we have an injury, boom, let's get Retegui. The amount of times that we've seen mismanagement from all the clubs, a lot of times in Italy, where they don't know, they don't identify their striker. They mess around with bonuses and how much you're going to spend. They identified, they acted quick, and they got the perfect, actually, they got a better replacement than the player that they had in their squad.
Antonio Conte came out and said the other day that it's Napoli have unrealistic expectations at times with the budget that they're willing to spend and the ideas that they have as a club, right? And obviously we all agree with that. I think that Atalanta is the opposite. They have very real expectations. When I talked to ownership when they were in the title race back in the season 6 months ago, they said, we just want Champions League football. That's what we're trying to do. The Scudetto would be a way bonus for us. So they know exactly what they're going for. They know exactly how to identify targets, and they don't get carried away with, hey, we're going to spend 300 million or 200 million, and we're going to go and accomplish this thing that's unrealistic. They're very close to, hey, this is what our club is. This is how we're successful. This is what we do well. This is what we do poorly. And they get their goals achieved at the end of the day, and they're slowly, constantly building something special there.
We take it for granted. We truly take for granted Atalanta consistently being in the Champions League. There's not a lot of people who believe that they will get back into the Champions League again, and maybe sometimes we do hold them to that even higher expectation when they went out of Champions League football to Club Brugge, and we said maybe now's the time that they could fight for the Scudetto. And at times that is unrealistic to put them in that equation. It's a good thing because it means that you're progressing as a club, but for them to get into Champions League football now again shows how well run they are as a club, and it shows the credit that Gasperini also deserves for getting more out of this squad again.
You're right. Their wage bill is middle of the pack. They just lost Tun Koopmeiners, who was considered maybe their best footballer. He's had a horrific season at Juventus. Doesn't matter. Ederson becomes one of the best box-to-box midfielders. We have seen this now since 2018, which is when Gasperini took over. We have seen them every single season. They lose massive pieces, revolving door of talent, in every position too. They're playing a different game than everyone else. There is no other Atalanta in world football. It just doesn't exist. I haven't seen it. There's no one that consistently punches above their weight season after season after season than Atalanta. It's unbelievable the work that Gasperini's done. He's the architect, I think, of it all. The scouting network, the sporting directors, the owners. It's a viable business that's also winning trophies. Those two things shouldn't go hand in hand. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
I still think that this Atalanta in the next 2 or 3 years can go on and win a Scudetto under Gasperini.
Worst job in football, taking over for Gasperini. It's as bad as the guy who took over for Jose Mourinho after he won the trouble with Inter. There are some jobs that you just stay away from. After Gasperini, you know it can't go possibly higher than what we've seen from Gasperini. They just won the Europa League. They finished in Champions League year after year. That is the last job I would ever want, taking over for that man.
And very quickly, another team that has defied expectations, at least in the last 2 seasons, is Bologna, qualifying for the Champions League for the first time this year, getting close to doing it again, but instead winning Coppa Italia. How remarkable is it what they've done?
Yeah, for me, it's incredible what they've done from the top to the bottom as well. The clubs that are accomplishing things way above their weight, like we say, talk about Atalanta and Bologna, is because from the top to the bottom, it's just run the right way. And the group is that, because when you look at their squad, they have a few individual talents, Orsolini and Doi, and they have a few young ones as well, but there's no one that really jumps off the page that can make the difference on their own. It's the group that they have together, and they've had a fantastic season. You could tell once they won the Coppa Italia against Milan and they got the Europa League football, they the air came out of the sails a little bit. But what Vincenzo Italiano is doing is exceptional there at Bologna.
Italiano said he's been choosing his players by smelling them and seeing if they still smell of alcohol, because basically they've just been partying since then. They knew the Champions League was out of reach. Europa League is a realistic thing, and hopefully they could go far. They could represent Italy very well next year in the competition.
Moise Kean, a great season. I think we saw flashes from him. But I would say if you were making predictions at the beginning of the season, this is probably where you put them, 6th or 7th place.
I just don't know if the fans will be happy enough with that. And I agree with you, Tony. And I remember, people were mad at us because we didn't say Fiorentina could get to the top 4 when they were fighting there. They were one of the teams that was in that position for a long time. I agree that this is realistically where they should be. They gave a renewal to Palladino right before that Conference League semifinals, and it didn't work out. They were not able to pass the competition, and they've gotten so used to at least getting to the final. And I think there's a big position in Florence on where they should go from this, with Palladino, but also with a lot of the key players. There's 3 or 4 players within the squad. Dodò is one of them. Gosens is another. Moise Kean, who has a release clause of $50 million. And then De Gea. Those 4 were phenomenal for me all season long. But can they retain some of those stars with just being in Conference League? That's a question that they're going to need to ask.
I really like Palladino. I think the project that he's doing is really good. I think when you look at Fiorentina and you see the progress they've made, yeah, it's been bumpy for sure. New manager, new play, a lot of new players coming in as well. Switch from a back 3 to a back 4. But he needs time, and I do see progress in him. And you look around at young Italian, or young managers all over Europe, he's the guy that I would have leading my project as well. And I think it's going to take time to get to where they want to get, but very promising project with, I think, heading in the right direction.
It's one of the things that managers don't have these days, right? Everyone wants it now, right? No one wants to see projects. They don't want to build anything. And I'm happy that they decided to give him a renewal, right? Because I do like the way that his teams play. I think what we saw today, the final score, I think, was coming at one point. The eventual goal that was the winner was coming. They had multiple opportunities. So credit to them. They got the job done to get themselves back in Europe.
Incredible. And for Lecce, who were in that tie with Empoli for 17th and 18th, would have been a relegation playoff coming into the day. Lecce, though, get the victory, and thus they are out of that mire of relegation. And confirmation there, it is Empoli, Venezia, and Monza that go down. But for Lecce, this is a staggering day. You mentioned the unlikelihood of the goal scorer. Never mind the fact that you're winning away at the Olimpico against Lazio, down to 10 men for 45 minutes.
Scudetto took his shirt off right away. He's the first guy.
Look at him. He's still got a weight in his hand.
Hey, if you look like that, you got to take your shirt off all the time. Listen, it's a disaster from Lazio, though. We have to say the truth. From Lazio, for you to lose at home, again, their home form has been terrible. One win at home since December is unacceptable. We went from the highs of thinking they could go on and get Champions League football to get nothing. Completely changes the summer for them. Coaching-wise with Marco Baroni, but also how do you retain players? How are you going to keep these guys and try to build a project? It's really unfortunate, and for it to end in this way is a true disaster and a shocking result.
If you look at where Lazio were after 15 match days, they were 3 points off the league lead. Then they lost 6-0 to Inter. After that, 8 wins from their final 23 games this season. And so it's just a disastrous result. Never mind, too, that they topped the Europa League phase as well, and then went out to Bodo Glimt in the quarterfinals. So second half of the season just wasn't good enough from Lazio.
It wasn't good enough, and I think that it was not clear what they were trying to do in a lot of their approaches, right? Because they went from a team that played total football. Actually, they were a little bit boring the way they played. Well, I enjoyed it, but they would play in triangles, a little bit Barcelona-esque of the old Barcelona. Then they went to a very defensive team, more organized and very pragmatic. They didn't send their fullbacks forward. And then this year, they kind of were just a really aggressive, direct team. but they never found the balance of being a team that was really good in front of goal offensively. They didn't really know exactly where they were going to get their goals from. Tavares had 8 assists on the season in October and then never had another one in the league. And then defensively, they conceded more goals than the last 5 seasons. So to me, that was always worrying. They're not really great defensively. They're not really great in the attack, albeit more direct. So it was never really clear what they were trying to do. And in the end, I think the truth came out, and they don't even get European football. So it's a shame. But with that kind of form in the second half of the season, you're not going to win many things.
They needed to reinforce in January. They made a big mistake. Lotito made a mistake not getting.
Needed to reinforce in last summer.
Yeah, but in January it was obvious. So every time that Guendouzi was playing every single match, whenever they would have a drop-off, they missed Rovella, they missed the center, they missed Tati Castellanos. It's a completely
different team. They missed
different
Tavares as well. The injury to him, he was injured 6 or 7 times this season. Taking a look ahead to next season in Serie A, here are the newly promoted sides. Sassuolo, who went down from Serie A last season, come right back up. They'll be into Serie A next season. Pisa as well into Serie A. And then our playoff finals between Cremonese and Spezia, the first leg of which is on May the 29th. This is what Serie A will look like next season.
You know, I love some Serie B talk. I'll admit, Sassuolo, Cremonese, Spezia. For what we do in the U.S., we want, I think, Palermo, Bari to compete a little more. The biggest cities in Italy.
Spezia's owned by Americans.
For sure. No, look, it's all great. It's all great. I'm not trying to rain on the parade, but I'm saying we've talked about this before. Some of those big southern teams, we got to get one of them. We got to get Sicilian team, Palermo in Serie A. Right, guys?
Yeah, we need it. It doesn't happen very often.
We had Juve Stabia, Catanzaro. We're also near the playoffs there, and win them. We get okay, but we'll see. We'll see next season.
But there is exciting things. Pisa is obviously a beautiful city, but also the coaches, Grosso and Inzaghi, coming up, what they're going to do in Serie A. Spezia is one of the most beautiful places in the entire world. Right? If they get promoted, we also know the president now, right? Charlie Stilitano is going to be the president. I think that's Tony's best friend, so maybe we get hooked up and go there. It's not a bad option.
Not a bad place to go.
All right, so let's hit through some of the big things going into next season. The first of which is the future of Antonio Conte, the manager of Napoli. Already suggestions that there'll be a meeting on Tuesday, after which it'll be confirmed that Conte will be out of the club and potentially off to Juventus. What do we think of where Conte is going to be next season?
I think he's going to be at Juventus, and Allegri's going to take over at Napoli. Allegri's already taken over for Conte before in the past. Took Juventus to 2 Champions League finals.
What would that mean for both of those clubs?
Let's go to the Allegri fan club. Mike Grello has been waiting for this moment for a year.
I'm not an Allegri fan club guy, but I was certainly not bought into the Thiago Motta thing. I wanted to see more before.
Hold on. We're talking about Allegri
Christ. Motta every week. Motta every week.
Marco's clip talking about Motta from maybe.
You guys were all saying the same thing. Anyway, talk about Allegri. Do you like Allegri at Napoli?
Yeah, why not? I think our big argument when Allegri left Juventus was, well, he says he's not a top 4 manager. He's not a top 5 manager, but I thought he was. And when you want stability and when you want realism and you want results, he's a really good manager. When you look in world football, there's not that many managers available. You're talking about a guy who won that much with Juventus and who's been a pretty solid manager over the years. He'll be organized. Players usually really like him, and he's won things. I don't see why that's such a crazy hire at Napoli. I think it fits okay.
And we'll see what happens with Napoli and, of course, with Juve as well, looking to rebound from finishing 4th. Now let's talk some Christian Pulisic. Obviously, so much of the conversation around Milan on these shores circles around him. Do you think he sticks around for another season and remains one of the main men there?
I think he should, genuinely. I think he's in a place now where he's one of the leaders of the team. He loves living there. We've seen it on our own documentary. He loves the place. So, I mean, what else do you want? Okay, you can say Champions League football. That's a big thing.
Or just European football.
You're at a massive club, Mike. He goes to one of the top teams in UCL. Is he starting every game?
I think at Milan, though, no matter where you are, you want not only consistency in your playing time and what you're able to accomplish, but a consistency in the team. And there was no consistency this year with the way they played, with the players around them, with the way they managed the club. So I think that's what will really bother Pulisic.
It's a harsh spot I'm putting you guys in, but next season, 25-26, who wins the Scudetto? One word, Marco Messina. Who wins the league? Juventus?
If Conte's there, it will be Juventus.
So that you can clip it up and show how dumb we are? No thanks.
Come on,
wait
no
for the summer transfer window.
No prediction?
Juventus,
Matteo?
I have to say now.
How can I predict? We don't know.
Marco predicted?
Come on.
Juventus.
He's just going with Conte.
Give a name.
Inter.
Inter. Okay.
How'd that work out for you this year?